It's hard, man. You gotta really survive out here, you heard? Stay strapped up, stay dangerous. This pain deep, remember chemistry. The bone break, then the history. Know the hate gon' show. Say the hardest, the beginning, say the hardest, letting go. Villanova, shit be wildcat switching over. Shit hurt worse than cold shoulders. A Fahrenheit, but the streets colder. Learn by getting older. Make a threat, then the threat's over. Don't leave leftovers. Remember telling dog we won't ever surrender. People's got it, still fighting with a public defender. That feel different.
So the first thing I want to just point out is that Lou's track he recorded here, so his vocals are already coming through raw at a very high quality. I can't speak, for the same of other artists that record at other studios and then have their vocals mixed here, because I'm not, 100% sure on what their recording is or what it's going through as far as a mic and a preamp. Does it go through an EQ? Is it being compressed all before it even gets to the computer? But at least here, the vocal is going through, a very high quality mic, a very high quality interface, a very high quality mic preamp and EQ, as well as a compressor before it even gets to Pro Tools. So that's a big factor in making sure that your vocals are gonna, have the highest quality before you even get to processing them. But the very first thing that I normally would do is in my vocal chain is, for his vocals in particular, just for the purposes of this video, I just, pulled in the 2-track recording session.
This pain deep, remember chemistry.
So on the track itself, there's some additional controlled compression just to, keep the dynamics in check. And then there's also some side chaining and some noise gate, just to help, alleviate the breaths and some, unwanted sibilance in his voice. And then just from there, but basically the main point of this video is that I wanted to just pull up EQ for a minute, because a lot of people mistake EQ and how to use it, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to throw your whole mix completely off, and it's a big factor in a vocal. There's obviously other important factors that go into making sure your vocal is going to sit right in the mix, but if you don't even understand how to EQ a vocal with subtractive EQ or tonal EQ, then you're most likely just going to be, you're going to be working backwards. So to alleviate that, what I'll do is I'll just come right in with the first EQ, which is most likely my subtractive and tonal, and you achieve this by using a dynamic EQ. So for instance, I'm using the Waves F6. This is a great dynamic EQ. I'm going to bypass it real quick. You'll hear his vocals without it.
This pain deep, remember chemistry. The bone break, then the history. Know the hate gon' show. Say the hardest, the beginning, say the hardest, letting go. Villanova.
So you can obviously see he's got a deep voice. He's got a lot of resonance, in between 250 and 500 hertz. And that's basically not, most male rappers, artists, singers, that have somewhat of a dominant voice, that's where they're going to have mud. They're going to have a lot of issues in that area. So rather than just going through and doing a sweep and just trying to pinpoint frequencies that, are going to cause troubles later on in the mix, you could just use a dynamic EQ and basically control them as they come. And what I mean by that is right here, so I have the 4-band set for dynamic. I have the low swept in, and the low is cutting off all the way up to 182 hertz, and then I have that 4-band working as a dynamic reducer, and basically that's just controlling everything from 475 hertz. And I have it in a bell right now, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll create it with a low shelf. That way it takes everything from that point and below it, and it controls it in that way. So I'll show you what that looks like right here. Okay, so having it set at 475 in dynamic mode, and right here I have the threshold all the way up. So what would happen is if I brought that threshold down, the second that it hits that threshold, I can reduce how much, well, I can basically capture how much I want it to reduce the frequencies from that point below. What most people will do wrong is they'll just go ahead and they'll just stick that gain level down and call it a day. So you'll have that set.
Deep, remember chemistry.
So if that's just set there, that's just going to take 6 dB down from that point or wherever you have it set. So you're just removing 6 dB of all those frequencies. All right, so what you would do is if you had it in dynamic mode, you would basically take that frequency. Sometimes I'll play it safe and I'll just come up to 1K, or roughly anywhere in there, like, a little over. And then when this plays now, I'm going to show you if I bring the threshold down and we'll just do 5 dB of reduction. All right, so now you'll see what that does.
This pain deep, remember chemistry. The bone break, then the history. Know the hate gon' show. Say the hardest, the beginning, say the hardest, letting go. Villanova, shit be wildcat switching over. Shit hurt worse than pulled shoulders. A Fahrenheit.
So keeping that threshold down around, 50 on the mix knob, and then just having that drop down on 5 dB of reduction. I'll bypass back and forth.
This pain deep, remember chemistry. The bone break, then the history. Know the hate gon' show. Say the hardest, the beginning, say the hardest, letting go. Villanova.
So that's just a little trick you can do with dynamic EQ. It helps clean up the mix a lot. It helps clean up the vocals so that they'll sit, nicely in there before you start compressing or anything like that. And, you can be experimental with that. Obviously, like I said, the frequency is going to vary by your ears, so, don't go too far up into the, into the 2K, 4K range, obviously, because that's where the presence is. I have it drop down on the 5 band a couple dB just because it was a little harsh in that area, so, obviously, it's going to vary from person to person. And then, in the 8K range where the air is, I just boosted that a little bit. So nothing too crazy. I'm gonna do more tips like that, but that was just for EQ. If you want to hear more about like compression, I could even go as far as like doing, showing how to do reverb, how to do delay, how to, really tuck that all in, how to really blend it in, with, stacked vocals, dubs, ad-libs, if you do a hook. There's plenty more that I can, elaborate on, based on whatever you guys want to see. But I figured I'd just throw that one out there because I know a lot of people struggle with EQ, and hopefully that helps, But by all means, feel free to message me and let me know what you think about that process.